And we had 3 doll hair stores in town, and they would get flooded. And then I could go buy these incredible, Bass Weejan shoes that would, like, let's say they were $18 back then. I could buy them for like $6 because the box had been in the flood, but the shoes were okay. But I'd have to walk across Main Street through the flood mud, and it was about ankle deep. But it was, it's time for the meeting, I guess, here.
Well, he starts recording a couple of minutes before it starts, but
Oh, okay. But I
um,
remember walking across through and the flood mud was the term, and it was just like concrete.
yeah. Well, I remember we finally got those cabinets pulled out of there, and it was literally there was like an inch or two in the shape of the filing cabinet
Yes,
after
yes.
we got it finally pulled out of there. And in
Yeah.
the bottom of the filing, because we had to pull the drawers out to paint it. So in the bottom of the filing cabinets, in those little grooves, completely full of, I mean, I can't call it anything but impacted dirt.
There's a lot of bacteria in there too, my friend, because a lot of the sewer systems were flooded and got into the water, which got into the mud. So it was,
Probably good I didn't know that then.
yeah, probably good. Of course, it was probably long gone by the time you were into it.
Well,
So,
yeah, that's what we'll go with.
yeah, there you go.
All right, I'm gonna mute everybody. I'll talk to you guys soon. Kim, welcome. I'm sorry I didn't get to speak to you. Hey, Wally, we're getting ready to start, but I wanted to say hello. Haven't seen you in a while.
Welcome, everybody, to the Rotary Club of Lexington, April 10th meeting. We're so glad you're here. Welcome to our fellow Zoomers, and here for the inspiration, one of two appearances by Cheyenne.
Okay, we're going to start with the pledge and the four-way test, and then you'll get have a seat. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the four-way test.
All concerned. Be beneficial to all concerned.
All right, have a seat. Okay, so I actually wrote this for last week, but since my amazing mom was here and she did the inspiration for us, this still applies to this week. So, okay, good afternoon. As I was sitting in my basement at 2:30 in the morning last week, safe with my family, thanks to my 18-year-old who made us all get up out of bed, I was thinking about all the people out there that may not have been safe. As Rotarians and business people, we have a unique position of leadership in this community. When things happen, we step up to help. In light of the extreme weather we have experienced last week and the historic and deadly flooding that has taken place in the aftermath, I would challenge each of you to use that position of leadership to reach out. Reach out to your family, reach out to your friends, your neighbors, your community, and your clients. See how they are. Just check on them. Maybe your neighbor needs help cutting up a tree that fell. Maybe your family members don't have power and need supplies. Whatever is needed, I encourage you to reach out and try to help. Even if it's not something you can do personally, we are all here. Our Rotary family is amazing. And the beautiful part of us is that we are mighty and together we can do anything.
Cheyenne, you're here. See? Cheyenne's playing injured today with a little back issue. Thank you for working through this. Here to introduce our guests is Sharon Townsend. Sharon.
Thanks, Brett. Cheyenne, your comments were beautiful. Thank you. We all can do more to help our friends and neighbors. Thank you. We have one visiting Rotarian today who just walked out. What can I say?
Smart man.
He's our speaker, Devone Holt. He went in the middle.
Hey!
He's a member of the Louisville Club and he's delighted to be here. So if I'm still standing up here when he gets back, we'll introduce him again. We have several guests of Rotarians today. A guest of Alicia Chaffin is Dr. Delisa Brooks. If you would stand. Thank you. Guest of Laurel Martin is Danny Murphy. Guest of Chris Campbell is Dale Morgan. I'll finish the guest and then move on. I've said some things that you. Guest of Franklin Thompson, Caleb Green. And guest of Joe Evans, Sam Overby. Thank you all. And Devon, I introduced you as a visiting Rotarian from the Louisville Club and also our speaker today. So welcome to everyone. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sharon. My company Cohesion LLC is this month's sponsor. And Susan, if you'd like to come up and pull the lottery, you want me to do it in your stead. And I allowed Susan to say, hey, pick a charity of your choice. And she's so involved with the Versailles, the Woodford Humane Society, that there's an opportunity, there's a tent on everybody's table that you can click and learn how to help the Woodford Humane Society. And Susan, on your behalf, I will pick these two numbers for the lottery.
It's sold, so we pick one that.
All right. All right. And what's the total at? And we're looking for the
Queen of Spades.
Queen of Spades, last four digits, 3818. 3818. We got in the back, and then 3816. Oh my goodness. I swished the tickets around, and here we go. Happened last week, second time ever. Queen of Spades. Nope, nope, and no. Thank you for playing. Thank you, Cheyenne. Celebrating birthdays today and next week. We've got Joe Evans, Daryl Ishmael, Emery Wilson, Lucas McAvoy, Brad Blaine, Kelly Newman, Burl McCoy, John Wharton, and Rick Strode. Last verse on 3, 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. All right. We are holding a membership recruitment social at the Thirsty Fox. That's at the old Capitol building in the courthouse. Tuesday, April 29th, from 5 to 6:30. Everybody bring someone. Big focus on membership in April. And we're encouraging each member to reach out to their peers, colleagues, and friends to bring them to this event. Next week, doing Rotary differently. We are a service organization, and Susie Basham in the third Thursday often has an opportunity for us to provide service to the community. At God's Pantries, we're doing the backpack pack up, 1 p.m. Contact Susie Basham if you've not attended or would like to attend. Also, next Thursday on the 17th at the Rotary office, we have a Canva art and design workshop. Contact Alicia Chafin if you have any questions or would like to participate. And our social chairperson with the mostest, Susan, has a Keeneland event on April 23rd. There's a QR code on your tables. Go ahead and click it if you're interested to attend and sign up. We've got handful of tickets still available. 6 tickets left. I know I'm gonna get 2. I'm gonna sign up, so maybe 4 tickets left. Sign up ASAP. And lastly, we've got 30 days till Dancing with the Lexington Stars. And if everybody brings in a bottle of bourbon, I bought this yesterday, a commemorative Derby bottle, $50, $51. That would be great. I think we got 2 or 3 in today. We'd like to average 10, so maybe we need twice as many next meeting. So we'll send out a note and a reminder, maybe 1 or 2 more days to be able to sponsor if you want to do that. So go ahead and get that in, and we're sold out, right? We are sold out with tickets, but it's amazing. It's a great job, Kate. But there are still ways to participate, and we can use all your help. All right, without further ado, we'd like to introduce our guest. But before I do that, I'd like to introduce the person who's going to introduce our guest, Mr. Eric Brooks.
Thank you, Brett. Good afternoon. I'm Rotarian. It's great to be here today. I always volunteer for this when it's a museum professional. There aren't a lot of us, and I feel compelled when I have a fellow museum professional to do my duty to make them welcome to our club. So I am glad to be able to do that today. I don't think anybody in here has not heard of Muhammad Ali. If not, please go on the internet immediately and start doing some searching. There are few Kentuckians who have ever lived who have the name recognition, the face recognition of Muhammad Ali. He traveled to 6 continents and dozens of countries. And I dare say that anywhere you go in the world, if you mention his name, he is known. He was a great ambassador, not only for his country, but for his state and his hometown of Louisville. Much has been written and said about Ali over the years. Dick Gregory, a famous comedian and social commentator, said of it, if people from outer space came to Earth, we had to give them one representative of our species to show them our physical prowess, our spirituality, our decency, our warmth, our kindness, our humor, and most of all, our capacity to love, it would be Ali. Dwayne Wade, the basketball Hall of Famer from the Miami Heat, said of him, yes, he was a great boxer, the greatest of all. But as a courageous humanitarian, that is where his brilliance spoke the loudest to me. No one said as much about Ali or said it as well as Ali himself. He is one of the most quotable human beings perhaps to have ever lived. One of my favorite quotes of Ali's is this: I've wrestled with alligators, I've tussled with a whale, I done handcuff lightning and thrown thunder in jail. You know I'm bad. Just last week I murdered a rock, injured a stone, hospitalized a brick. I'm so mean I make medicine sick. You can't say it better than that. That is the greatest example of trash talk I have ever heard. No current athlete touches that. He managed to do it in rhyming poetry. That is awesome. But he made another quote, and I think this is incredibly powerful. It says a lot about what he wanted out of life, what he wanted for himself, and perhaps for others in our country. I am America. I am the part you won't recognize, but get used to me. Black, confident, cocky, my name, not yours. My religion, not yours. My goals, my own. Get used to me. I like that. I think there's a lot to be said about that. And he said it's something that I think is an incredibly important quote for a group like this. Service is to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. Our speaker today is Mr. Devone Holt. He is the CEO of the Ali Center in Louisville. If you have not been, please make a trip. It's an incredible place. Informational, inspirational, educational, and very entertaining. Trust me, if you want to find out how athletic you are, go to the second floor, try out the speed bag and the heavy bag. You'll learn very quickly the truth of that. Mr. Holt was named CEO last year, 2024. Prior to that, Mr. Holt was the Chief of External Affairs for Goodwill Industries of Kentucky. Big fan of Goodwill. Shop at Goodwill a lot. Right. I recommend that as well. It's very environmentally friendly and it's very affordable. You can stretch your budget and protect the planet at Goodwill and do a lot of good for a lot of people, as Mr. Holt did in building a campus in Louisville to support job training and other endeavors. Prior to that, he worked in education, a variety of capacities. He's written a book called The Impact, Hip Hop Slop, The Impact of a Dysfunctional Culture, which I'm very interested to learn more about. Sounds like a very interesting book. He lives in Louisville with his wife, Lori, and their two future leaders, Alexandra and Aaron. Welcome to Lexington, Mr. Holt.
Was that not the best introduction ever? That was incredible. I love that. I love it. We got to record that so we can play that for all of our Muhammad Ali Center events. Thank you for having me here today, Lexington Rotarians. I'm thankful to be here as a Louisville Rotarian, where I am missing out on our Rotarian luncheon today in Louisville, Kentucky. But they do send greetings, and I will let them know that I was treated very kindly here in Lexington, Kentucky, despite the red and blue differences that we wrestle with. I will start by telling you guys that this is really a second home for me. I started my career after graduating from Eastern Kentucky University right here in Lexington, Kentucky. A gentleman by the name of Bernie Vonderheide gave me my first job working in the public relations department at the University of Kentucky. Bernie was a good man. He saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and he gave me some incredible job opportunities, career building opportunities in that role. And I love to tell the story because it really helped shape how I saw life moving forward. Bernie wanted to continue to give me these prize assignments to help me grow and learn as a young public relations professional. And one assignment came along that was my absolute favorite. And he thought that I would love to be a part of it. And that was helping to coordinate the press conference that introduced Tubby Smith as the first African-American head coach at the University of Kentucky. You guys remember that in 1997, right? I was so excited. I was young, bright-eyed, naive. And Bernie gave me a list of tasks because he didn't want me to screw this thing up. And so, yeah, you help coordinate it, but here are the things that you need to do. And at the very bottom of the list was an assignment that was a sign of the times. It was an assignment to tell everyone in the room to turn off their pagers. Pages. Some of you are old enough to remember that. We got a couple of young folks here. But Bernie's belief was that the press conference would be ruined if someone's pager went off while Tubby was speaking. And so in an eager attempt to impress Bernie, I went around the room to everyone. Turn off your pager, turn off your pager, turn off your pager. I had a little bit more time before the press conference started. And if you guys remember it, I mean, it was a big deal. There were media outlets from all around the country who came to see the big news. And I went around to each and every one of them a second time. Turn off your pager, turn off your pager, turn off your pager. press conference starts. And Tubby's at the podium. Bernie's standing next to the podium, and I'm standing next to Bernie, athletic director and president are on this side. And as Tubby's talking, someone's pager goes on. And I was mad, I was heated, I was frustrated, and then I was embarrassed because it turned out to be my panel. True story, true story. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen those Snicker commercials where they say you want to get away. Bernie looked at me and I just shrank like that small. He didn't say a word, but the look said everything. And true story, it was a nationally televised press conference. And my mother, who lives in Louisville, Kentucky, was watching it. And she saw her firstborn child on television, national television, with my head tilted to the side. And she sent me a message on my pager to tell me to straighten up my head. So my mother took me out in front of the whole country. But great memories of being here in Lexington, Kentucky. I will tell you guys, if you have questions, I wanna set the record straight now, because having worked at UK from 95 to 98, those of you who know this area, you know what happened in 96, 97, and 98 with the University of Kentucky basketball program. 3 championship visits in a row. And I told my friends from Louisville, Kentucky, one of 2 things happen when you're in Lexington, Kentucky during a time like that. You either learn to love UK or you learn to hate UK. There's no in between. There's no in between. And I grew to love UK, so much so that when I eventually moved back home in 1998, I found myself pitted against my family and my friends who continue to wear red, so go Big Blue. I share that with you. So I started my career here, and last year I made one incredible pivot. And that was in July, where I accepted an offer to become the president and CEO of the Muhammad Ali Center. And as we shared, Muhammad is no small figure. It's interesting, as much as I felt like I understood the magnitude of his name, his presence, his legacy, it became even bigger for me when I stepped into this role, because you start to recognize that he was more than a boxer. He was so much more than a boxer, and that his impact has global implications. I can tell you now, I'm in conversations with folks literally from all around the world as we are thinking about ways to continue to build and expand his legacy. And so we have this facility in Louisville, Kentucky, and I've talked to several of you, and you visited, and I welcome those of you who haven't to come experience it. It is an absolutely beautiful facility that is full of education. It's a 96,000 square foot, 6th floor space dedicated to the life and legacy of Muhammad. But when he was alive and was a part of helping to envision what this center, and I will explain why I call it a center and not a museum, what this center was designed to do, he said he didn't want this to be a space that simply glamorized him as a boxer. He was proud of his boxing career. As a matter of fact, years after the place was built, there's a section in the center, in the museum space, where they show old films of his matches, his boxing matches. And you can push a button and watch whatever fight you want to. And it was pretty common to walk through the museum, for guests to walk through the museum and see Muhammad sitting in the seats watching himself. Because as his wife, Lonnie Ali, will tell you, and she's still with us, and she's still a significant part of what we do at the Muhammad Ali Center. She often tells me, she says, Devone, I love my husband. And she doesn't say loved, she says love, no ED. I love my husband. She said, but there's no way possible that I could love him more than he loved himself. He loved himself. And he was such an incredible personality, yes, known globally to the point where once upon a time, it was surveyed nationally, internationally, who was the most recognizable face on the planet. And the most recognizable face was not Muhammad Ali. The most recognizable face was the Michelangelo painting of Jesus Christ. That was the most recognizable face on planet Earth. The second most recognizable face on planet Earth was a young man who grew up in West Louisville and built a career as a boxer and got to know the world as a humanitarian, as an activist, and as someone who cared deeply about people. And that's amazing to me to think that someone from my neighborhood, I live in West Louisville right now, I grew up in West Louisville, that someone from my neighborhood literally became one of the most recognizable faces on planet Earth. And let's be clear, he did this before social media, before emails, before the internet. He spent time, as the politicians say, pressing the flesh. When Muhammad would go to places, very rarely would he sit in his hotel. He actually loved meeting people. He loved to see people's reaction to him. So it was very common for him to go to a mall and stand at the door and open it for people and wait for them to recognize who he was. His son told me the other day, I had no idea that he would do this. He said, Dad, when we were in the car, he would be in the passenger seat and we'd be on the interstate and he rolled down the window. And they say, why are you rolling down the window? They say, I just needed a little air. That wasn't what he needed. He wanted people driving by to see him in the car. And they made him stop doing it because there were almost a few wrecks that happened because people were so excited to see Muhammad Ali in person, but he loved people. And so he became known as a boxer. As a matter of fact, the greatest of all time. I don't know that many people argue that. He was incredible in what he was able to do in the boxing ring. But it wasn't so much what he did as a boxer, as the greatest of all time, that we are building on as the Muhammad Ali Center. It is the Muhammad Ali that we have come to know as the People's Champ. Because the People's Champ is different than the one that we recognize as the greatest of all time. The People's Champ was the one who saw value in every single human being. He saw potential in every single human being. So much so that when the Muhammad Ali Center was built, he wanted to make sure that we were established with a mission that had us functioning as a cultural center and not so much as a museum. And so as a cultural center, we have a three-pronged mission at the Muhammad Ali Center that Muhammad gave us. First one is to foster respect. It's the very first thing he said he wanted the Muhammad Ali Center to do. He wanted to be a place where no matter who you were, no matter where you came from, no matter your background, no matter your religion, no matter your political persuasion, no matter how much money you had or didn't have, no matter what side of the railroad tracks you lived on, that you deserve respect. And he wanted us as a center to be able to advance that agenda in his name as the Muhammad Ali Center. The second one is to inspire the next generation of change makers. Muhammad Ali was definitely a change maker, but he didn't want change to start and stop with him. And so part of what he wanted the center to be able to do was serve as a place where young people, young visionaries, young leaders, people who were passionate about making the world a better place could come and be inspired by his story, not necessarily to live his life, but to create footsteps for themselves that might be inspired by what he was able to do himself. And then thirdly, he wanted to foster respect. He wanted to inspire the next generation of change makers, and Muhammad wanted to continue to advance social justice. Those were the three things he said he wanted the Muhammad Ali Center to do. And so it was with that understanding that we have started to give shape to Muhammad in work that has continued his legacy. And as CEO, I've become more familiar with Muhammad outside of the boxing ring based on stories that I'm continuing to hear from people who've had a chance to experience or interact or meet Mohammed. How many here have ever had the chance to meet Mohammed? Okay, so it's a good number of people. Good.
In London.
In London? Not London, Kentucky. Gotcha. Well, so, the stories that I hear from people are incredible. And it's amazing that so many of them have absolutely nothing to do with boxing. Except one story that I will tell you, I spoke at a synagogue recently. And afterwards, one of the gentlemen there came up to me and he said, I want to tell you a story about what happened at a Jewish senior citizens complex in Miami, Florida. Mohammed came in and he was the champ at the time and still boxing and brash and bold like we know him to be. And he came in, not surprisingly, wanting everybody to know who he was. You know who I am? I'm the champ. Muhammad Ali. So everybody's acknowledging him, except one gentleman in the corner, some man in a wheelchair. And he goes over and he asks the man, do you know who I am? And the man looks up at him, says, I know who you are. You're my favorite boxer. You're Joe Louis. And immediately, the people in the room went to correct this man and learned, Muhammad, in correcting him, Muhammad learned that this man was suffering from dementia. And so Muhammad that day told them, no, if this man needs me to be Joe Louis, today I'm going to be Joe Louis. And for the rest of the time that he was there at that senior citizens complex, he was there under the auspices of Joe Louis because he wanted to show compassion to this man who had dementia and believed that he was meeting his favorite boxer. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is a Muhammad Ali story that we don't often get to hear from the general public, but becomes more and more of the story that we become to understand about Muhammad. One of the other stories I heard about him as a compassionate human being comes from a place that you would never imagine, the boxing ring. You guys know that we recently lost George Foreman. And I had been in talks for months before George Foreman passed with one of his sons. I don't know if you got, George named all of his sons George. So I can't tell you which George, it's just George. But I've been in conversation with George, his son, and he was telling me this story about him and Muhammad. They built names based on the fight that they had 50 years ago, the Rumble in the Jungle, one of the greatest fights of all time, where Muhammad Ali was certain to lose, but he won. He beat down the big bad George Foreman. And George said one of the greatest acts of compassion he ever experienced was at the end of the fight when Muhammad Ali had clearly had him beaten and had punched him to the point where George was exhausted and was stumbling to fall, but had not fallen yet. Muhammad Ali had the opportunity to take 3 more punches at George Foreman as he was falling, but he held back every punch. He said he could have continued to pummel me, but he didn't. He said, it won't make sense to you all who are not in the boxing arena, but for me, that was one of the greatest acts of compassion that George Foreman said he had ever encountered. And so it's with that understanding of Muhammad as a compassionate human being that we at the Muhammad Ali Center launched in January of this year, right around his birthday, a new initiative that we call the Muhammad Ali Index. And this is our attempt and our approach at the Muhammad Ali Center to make the world a more compassionate place. We launched at that event where we had the very first Compassion Summit, what we call the Compassion Report. I bought a few of these and I'll leave them here for you guys to look. If you don't get a chance to see them, you can visit them at aliindex.org, aliindex.org. But this was an approach that the center started about 3 years ago. Before I arrived, because they were then starting to recognize a growing trend that we have all come to recognize, I'm sure. A growing trend with toxic rhetoric, polarization, isolation, in ways that are diminishing how we show compassion to one another. And it was our desire to do something about it. And so what did we do? Well, it wasn't just enough to say, love your brother, love your sister. We decided we wanted to take a scientific approach to addressing this issue about compassion. And so we partnered with a research firm that continued this research study in 12 pilot cities. And in those 12 pilot cities, Louisville being one of those, we studied compassion by having surveys done with thousands of people in those cities. Our research partner has a proprietary AI technology that scrubs online data on websites and social media platforms to understand how people are interacting with one another to gauge the compassion level in dialogues online. And then we study compassion through policy, looking at laws in communities, looking at policies in other places, and packaged all of that information to do a few things. One, to start to understand the levels of compassion that existed in those places. And we created what we call net compassion scores. And the net compassion score topped out at a positive 100 and bottoms at a negative 100. Well, City of Seattle ranked highest on our list as the most compassionate city in our study at a positive 16. Positive 16. Louisville came in second at a positive 15. Las Vegas trailed a negative 13. And it said a lot to us about the opportunity for growth in the world of compassion for us. But we didn't just study and rank. Part of what we also were able to do was start to understand what helps make healthy, compassionate communities, environments, companies, organizations, and began to share that information in our report so that legislators, educators, community activists, business leaders, and clergy all could understand the tools and the resources and the strategies that have all proven to be positive ways to help improve how we coexist with one another. And so we launched that in January, and I will tell you, we've been off to an incredible start. The media has been great at embracing us. The Today Show had us on. We've been on MSNBC. We've been on CNN. We've had Fox. We've had Forbes magazine. They've all taken an interest in understanding what this compassion index is, what this compassion report is, and what it means, and how we can begin to move our country in a more compassionate direction. Because we realized we didn't want to get involved in the back and forth political conversations that were happening. That was, in many cases, we believed to be futile. We needed to have an elevated conversation around how we show respect to one another, how we follow the lead that Muhammad Ali established, who it didn't matter to him if you were black or white. It didn't matter to him if you were a Republican or Democrat. It just mattered to him that you were human, that you were God's child. And so we've created this compassion report and this compassion strategy where now we're moved beyond sharing the data, and we are now working on activation strategies in these 12 communities, where we're building out work that we do with community partners to truly be intentional about how we help elevate compassion levels and communities that we identified in this study, the 12 pilot cities, but other communities as well. And so I come here not just as the Muhammad Ali Center CEO and president, but as a champion for compassion today, and ask that this community and this Rotary Club embrace this work in a way that allows us continue this move to make our world more compassionate. You know, we don't all have to think alike. We don't all have to vote alike. Don't have to live in the same places. But it sure would be nice if we learn to respect one another, to foster the respect that allows us to see one another as human beings. So I've got an ask of you before I leave here today. And that ask is for you, again, to go online to aliindex.org and take what we call the Muhammad Ali Pledge. It's just a pledge to suggest that you will be much more intentional about finding ways to be compassionate with your brothers and your sisters and your neighbors, your family members, and your coworkers. We ask that you do that like thousands of people already have from literally all around the world. Shaquille O'Neal signed it, David Beckham signed it, got a lot of other celebrities and entertainers who are signing on, elected officials, because they see the value in what it is we're attempting to accomplish. And lastly, I'll say this as we champion compassion. One of the things that you'll see in this report as we talk about compassion is that it happens in levels. You know, there's compassion for your general neighbor, there's compassion for your city, there's compassion for your neighborhood, there's compassion for your neighbor, compassion for your family. But the most important level of compassion we were able to identify is compassion for self-compassion. And what we learned was one of the reasons why compassion levels are so low is that we are not doing the things that we need to do to position ourselves to be more self-compassionate, meaning that people are burnt out, people are exhausted, people are tired, people are frustrated, people are walking around angry and not addressing those needs that they have for themselves. And if you can't give compassion to yourself, it's going to be hard for you to do that for your neighbor. You know the saying when we get on airplanes, airplane starts to descend, you do what? You put the oxygen mask on yourself before you share it with someone else. And the same goes with compassion. If you're going to share compassion with your neighbors, my first request of you all is to look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I giving myself the levels of compassion that I need in order to be a more compassionate person who shows up in the world? Thank you guys. We've got about 5 minutes for Q&A. I am a Rotarian, so I know how this goes. We'll make good use of this 5 minutes, though. Happy to answer any questions you might have. Or hear any Muhammad Ali stories you might want to share.
Any other questions for Devone? Yes.
Yes.
What is your police center funding source outside?
So several ways, obviously through admissions and our gift shop, we generate resources there. We've got a beautiful event space that we rent out to organizations and individuals for a number of activities. As a matter of fact, the Rotary Club for years in Louisville, up until COVID, had their weekly Rotary luncheon at the Muhammad Ali Center. So we generate revenue that way. And then the other way we do that is by me asking people like you all to make a generous donation at alicenter.org, alicenter.org. So thank you for asking. Yes, sir.
What do you think Rotary should do to be more compassionate?
Well, you know, actually, I will tell you, Rotary, I can speak for our Rotary Club in Louisville, actually talks the talk and walks the walk. It is an organization that is vested in making sure that we are doing service work to support organizations and initiatives in the community that are making a difference. And I would encourage you all that if you are finding yourself connected with those as an organization, to make sure that the body is engaged in that work as best you can. But I think the Rotary actually is a place that is committed to doing that in real meaningful ways. You got time for one more?
As a kid, I was growing up on a farm in Shelby County. I had the opportunity to watch patients
Cassius Marcellus Clay.
On TV. Unbelievable what he turned out to be.
Who knew, right? Who knew? And he was, I will tell you, a proud Louisvillian, a proud Kentuckian. He would tell it to everyone he met, where he was from, where his greatness came from. And he said he lived his life by 6 core principles that he said were primarily established in Kentucky. Those 6 core principles were confidence, conviction, dedication, giving, respect, and spirituality. Those are things that he built his life around. Those are the things that he said made him great. And he said Kentucky had a whole heck of a lot to do with that. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for having me.
On behalf of the Lexington Club, Rotary Club of Lexington, and our very own Bill Strauss, a lithograph of Keeneland. Give it up again for. Thank you so much. Excellent program. We do have a Rotary Club committee meeting, a Dancing with the Lexington Stars committee meeting following this, and we'll see you in service next week and the following week back here. We are adjourned.